Buenas noches, soy Ana María Lomelí, estamos al filo. Quiropráctico, investigador, experto en el poder de la mente, autor de los bestsellers Deja de ser tú y El placebo eres tú. Ha dado conferencias en 17 países de los 5 continentes. Esta noche, al filo, Dr. Joe Dispenza. Welcome. It's a pleasure to have you here, Dr. Joe Dispenza.
I'm honored to be here.
El poder de la mente. ¿Qué es el poder de la mente?
Well, I think the mind is involved in everything that we do, how we think, how we act, and how we feel. I think that when most people get their mind working for them instead of against them, they produce better results in their life.
Pero todos pensaríamos que es obvio que queremos los mejores resultados. ¿Qué pasa con nuestra mente si lo que queremos es eso? ¿Qué nos pasa?
Most of the time, people are living by the hormones of stress. They're living in survival. And it's the chemicals of stress that cause us to think more negatively. It causes us to focus on the worst things that could happen in our lives and prepare ourselves for those events. So in the short term, that's healthy. But if you keep doing it over time, it becomes dangerous.
Esto de vivir sobreviviendo es lo que no nos gusta a nadie y lo que dices es que pues, finalmente lo acabamos haciendo con nuestros pensamientos. ¿Cómo reprogramamos el cerebro finalmente si es pues a lo que tú te dedicas ahora, a reprogramar la mente? ¿Cómo le hacemos?
In the primitive mechanisms of how the brain and body work, when you react to something in your life, you stimulate a nervous system that begins to mobilize enormous amounts of energy to prepare yourself for some threat in your external environment, because the outer world is where the danger is. So we become materialists and we begin to define reality with our senses. And our attention is really on things and people and places, and we're trying to control all the things in our life. That becomes dangerous because we try to change, but we're using our conscious mind to make the change. 95% of who we are is programmed subconsciously. So in order for you to make significant changes in your life and reprogram yourself, you have to begin to separate yourself from your environment. You close your eyes, you play soft music in the background. Now the outer world isn't as real as the inner world. You set your body down for a period of time and it's not doing anything, it's sitting still. It's less stimulation for the brain. And if you can relax into the present moment, what happens is you begin to change the way your brain works. In other words, what separates your conscious mind from your subconscious mind is your analytical mind. And being able to get beyond the analytical mind and enter those subconscious programs is where we begin to make the most changes. So we use meditation as the model because it works, and we've measured close to 2,000 brains now in meditation, and we now know that that is probably the best way that people make permanent changes.
¿Meditación se necesita un mantra o simplemente con guardar silencio y aquietar la mente?
Now, we have several different types of meditations that we teach, not just focusing on nothing, but really we teach people how to change beliefs and perceptions about themselves and their lives. We teach them what it means truly to be in the present moment. We teach them how to recondition their body to a new mind and to a new emotional state.
Pero sí, hay que practicar, hay que tener disciplina incluso para meditar.
Yeah, and it's not that hard. I mean, when you're driving down the road in the car, and as you're driving down the road in the car and you're on the freeway, and all of a sudden you forget about everything that's going on in your outer world. You forget that you have a body, and you forget about time. You're in trance while you're driving down the freeway. That's because your inner world is more real than your outer world. And that's the exact same state that we use in the meditative process. So the brain naturally does this. It's just that when we're living in stress, it does it a lot less. So teaching people how to break free from the chains of those chemicals, those emotions from the stress hormones that are addictive, frees people from their same states of mind and body. And those chemicals of stress are highly addictive.
Hay muchas personas que tienen insomnio, principalmente por el estrés, por preocupaciones del otro día. ¿Cómo podríamos en este momento darles un tip para que cambiaran esa realidad que los está perturbando?
Well, again, when you're living in stress, you're always preoccupied about the future, trying to anticipate the future based on the past. As a matter of fact, the brain is kind of an anticipation machine. And so most people who are worried about the future, they're selecting in their mind the worst thing that could happen to them, and they begin to emotionally embrace it. As you keep doing that, you begin to condition your body into a state of anxiety. Anxiety is living in the future. Depression is just the opposite. People keep reviewing their past and bringing up the same chemicals in their brain and body as if the event was occurring. And over time, they condition their body into hopelessness and powerlessness. Simple thing to do is sit up before you go to bed. And instead of focusing on objects and things, that's called a narrow focus. And when we're under stress, that kind of emergency state is important when we have to deal with threats. But our research shows that when people begin to, instead of focus on objects and things, begin to open their focus, they begin to sense the space around their head and space.
Tus libros son bestsellers. Este dice, deja de ser tú. Pero de niños, de jóvenes, lo que más nos repiten es que hay que tener seguridad en ti mismo. ¿Cómo luchar por tener esta seguridad en quién soy? Y después llega Joe Dispenza y dice, deja de ser tú.
Yes. Well, the actual translation in English is called breaking the habit of being yourself. And I think the greatest habit we have to break is the habit of being ourselves. Because by the time we're 35 years old, we have a set of memorized behaviors and emotional reactions, mannerisms, propensities, beliefs, perceptions that function subconsciously. We've done it so many times that the body knows how to do it as well as the brain. Automatically. And so there's nothing wrong with the qualities and skills that we've developed that are high functioning. But we get in trouble because we get complacent and lazy in doing the same things, thinking the same way, feeling the same way. And in time then, when you want to create something new in your life, a new relationship, a new job, a new opportunity, to experience a greater sense of self, in order for you to experience that, you can't bring those mechanisms biologically from the past. So in order for you to change, you have to break some habit of the old self and reinvent a new self. So the change then has to happen from us changing within. And so we know that when people begin to set aside everything in their life and spend a little bit of time, 20 minutes, a half an hour a day, understanding that they can work on themselves and change the way their brain is wired, change how their body has been conditioned. When they get up and they live their life, they're more calm, they're more clear, their brain is working better, their heart is open, they're creative, they're innovative, they're seeing possibilities that they never saw before because they're no longer viewing their future through the lens of the past. And that's when people begin to make really significant strides in their lives.
Algunos conocen tu historia, pero vamos a hacer memoria rápidamente. Tuviste un accidente terrible en un triatlón, te atropelló un todoterreno y los diagnósticos de los doctores era que podías quedar paralítico. Entonces te iban a hacer una operación tremenda. ¿Qué pensaste tú para revertir esto? Porque finalmente los médicos no tuvieron la razón del todo. Si el diagnóstico era correcto, pero revertiste las consecuencias, ¿qué pensabas realmente?
Well, I was thinking that I was in big trouble. I mean, I broke 6 vertebrae in my spine, and I had bone fragments on the cord, and the arch that the spinal cord passed through had broken, so I had a lot of physical problems. And the surgery that they typically do is putting in long stainless steel rods in my spine. Well, I just couldn't imagine myself living the rest of my life with a handicap. And so I decided that I was going to work on 2 things, that I was going to see if I could change my state by thought alone, and that I wasn't going to let any thought slip by my awareness that I didn't want to experience. Now, when you're facing a crisis or a trauma like that, we always focus on what we don't want to have happen instead of what we do want to have happen. And I think the big test for me was that I couldn't get my mind to do what I wanted it to do, which became the challenge. So I had a lot of difficulty. And I was challenged on a daily basis because I was in a lot of pain, I had problems with my limbs, and I was having difficulty feeling and moving. But I understood that there is an intelligence within us that's giving us life. And I thought, maybe I could connect with this intelligence. I'm not going anywhere. I'm not doing anything. I was laying face down, and I thought, if I could begin to give this intelligence a very specific design, a template, a plan, and when I was happy with that design, that vision, I would surrender my creation to this intelligence and allow it to do it for me, because it does a much better job than my conscious mind could ever do. So I went through 6 weeks of terrible, terrible frustration. And then after a period of time, it began to change. And once it started to change, I knew that I was making a difference, and that's when I started really healing quickly.
¿Y en cuánto tiempo regresaste a caminar de nuevo?
10 weeks. They told me that I probably would never walk again. And if I did, I'd have to wear a body brace in about 6 months. And so I was back in my practice and back training at 12 weeks. And to this day, I really never have any pain in my spine.
Hablamos de un problema de salud físico. Pero, ¿y el cáncer? Alguien que tiene cáncer. Cuando a una persona le dicen que tienes cáncer, a veces toman los tratamientos habituales. Muchos buscan la medicina alternativa, pero luchan con todas sus ganas por revertir esto. Y muy pocos lo logran. ¿Es el poder de su mente que falla?
No, I mean, cancer is a very, very serious condition. Basically, cancer cells are immortal cells. And so what you're working on doing is overcoming immortality in a way. And it takes a Herculean effort to be able to do that. We have had many people in our work heal themselves of cancer, and we've had people in the work that haven't healed themselves of cancer. I think the biggest problem is that when you're given a diagnosis for cancer, the moment you get that diagnosis, the first emotion that comes up is fear. And when you feel fear, you can only accept, believe, and surrender to the thoughts that are equal to that emotional state. And you will not accept, believe, and surrender to any other thoughts that are not equal to that emotional state. So if you're feeling fear and you're trying to be hopeful, that information is not programming the body in any way. Get a person in a state of gratitude, independent of their condition, in a state of enthusiasm, in a state of love. They'll accept, believe, and surrender to the thoughts equal to that emotional state, and they'll begin to program their autonomic nervous system to produce a new biology of chemicals. So cancer is a huge problem, and we all attack it in different ways. I think the biggest thing is to have a plan. There are 3 types of stress in your body: physical, chemical, and emotional. So if a person then begins to address their condition by taking care of their physical body with the proper exercise, doing the proper things, and they take care of their body chemically, and I don't care if it's pharmaceuticals, nutraceuticals, a combination of both, but they're trying and working to create chemical balance. And if they begin to work on their emotional states, because it's those stress hormones that push the genetic buttons that create the disease. The biggest problem that I have with a cancer diagnosis is that it's a death sentence. I don't believe that anybody can say you have 6 months to live, you have 3 months to live, you have 2 weeks to live. I just don't believe in that. And so when people hear that, it's almost like a voodoo curse.
Yes.
And so if you say, look, you have some time here to extend the quality of your life, and you're going to have to work in making some significant changes, I think that's more supportive to the person.
¿Es autoayuda?
I would say that it's a scientifically proven way to teach people how to have more command over their life.
Juguemos al filo, asociación de ideas.
Okay.
Mente,
Brain,
cuerpo,
heart,
energía,
frequency,
emociones,
power,
centro creativo,
brain and heart,
potencial,
possibility,
espíritu,
invisible,
sentimiento,
truth,
poder,
love,
divinidad,
who we are,
fuerza,
power,
reprogramar,
innate,
metas,
vision,
conocimiento,
wisdom,
corazón,
power,
paz.
love.
Doctor Joe Dispenza, yo me quedo con esa capacidad de reinventarnos siempre. No importa qué tan acostumbrados estemos a ser nosotros mismos, podemos ser mejores todo el tiempo. Muchas gracias por habernos acompañado. Estamos pendientes de tu próximo libro.
Thank you.
Y muchas gracias a ustedes, gracias por habernos acompañado. Recuerden que tenemos una cita la próxima semana al filo. Que descansen.